Hello book lovers and welcome to Book Talk Radio Club. My name is Claire Perkins and today I am talking to author Jim Nesbitt. His book, The Best Lousy Choice, was a finalist in Book Talk Radio Club's 2019 awards. Hi Jim, first of all welcome and thank you for coming on Book Talk Radio Club.
Well, thank you for having me on board again. It's a pleasure.
Oh, thank you. Happy Thanksgiving to you, of course.
And happy Thanksgiving to you. We're breathlessly awaiting the arrival of the turkey.
Well, I'm glad I'm not interviewing the turkey anyway.
Well, we'll see.
The Best Lousy Choice. Jim, would you like to give Book Talk Radio Club's listeners a brief synopsis of the book, please?
Yeah, it's in this book, it's the third in the series, but actually, time-wise, it's set in between my first novel, The Last Second Chance, and the second novel, The Right Wrong Number. And in this case, my protagonist, Ed Earl Birch, a defrocked Dallas homicide investigator and private investigator, is really kind of an emotional wreck. He's having to hose down nightmares from the last case he had out in West Texas with Percodan and whiskey. And because he's deeply in debt to a Shylock lawyer, he has to take on a divorce case, which is the type of case work he hates. And he has to go to West Texas again, where he almost got killed in the first novel. So he's having a rough time of it, but paradoxically, when he works, he seems to chill out, and the demons seem to stay in their holes. But when they don't, he's got to take some Percodan and whiskey to self-medicate. He quickly winds up getting called in to investigate a suspicious death of a prominent local rancher in a barn fire, and which is exactly the kind of case he misses from his days carrying a gold shield in Dallas. I mean, basically, he's a murder cop, and the things he has to do as a PI really just kind of depress him, and it's really like work with no honor.
Right.
He's thrilled to get called to what he does best, but that causes him to ignore some, red flags and warning signals of how nasty this investigation is going to be. He's hired by the outlaw cousin of the rancher who died, and so Ed Earl doesn't know who to be suspicious of, who to trust. There's a lot of suspects on his list, including over-the-border drug king named Malo Garza, the corrupt county sheriff, Blue Willingham, and even the outlaw cousin, Jip Hewlett. And it's an interesting backstory with the Hewletts. There's kind of the good Hewletts and the bad Hewletts. It's very much a family at war with itself.
Right.
And there's some rather nasty land developers who wanted the rancher's land, and the rancher's named Mark Hewlett. He's a war hero, World War II, and prominent citizen, former state legislator, and former county judge, which in Texas means he's basically the head of he's not really a judicial judge, he's the head of the local government. And it's a case that the local sheriff really doesn't want to investigate because he's compromised and doesn't really want to find out who might have ordered Bart's death. So that's what the world that Birch is plunged into. Like I like to say, I've thrown him back into the West Texas briar patch, and we'll see whether he either winds up eating a bullet or surviving, thriving, and bringing the bad guys to some form of justice, either the courthouse kind or more the frontier kind.
Right. Jim, your books are described as hard-boiled detective novels. What is a hard-boiled detective novel, and where does that description come from?
Well, it's one of the divisions that divisions is far too formal a word, that of the particularly American form of crime fiction that emerged in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, fathered by guys like Raymond Chandler, Dashiell Hammett, James M. Cain, and then carried forward by guys like James Crumley, the late great James Crumley, vastly unappreciated author. And it was kind of developed in almost a protest of the predominant crime novels of the 20s and early 30s, which was the British-style cozy mystery.
Sure, the golden age of mysteries.
It uses deductive logic. These books are much more realistic. They tend to be set in a urban setting, but clearly I'm out in the outback in West Texas with mine, and so are a lot of the more modern writers.
Right.
And Hardboiled is just generally frank about the violence, the sex, and it portrays kind of the underbelly of the American dream.
Right.
It's frank about corruption. It's frank about crime. It's frank about violence and sex and all those things that make America such a great country. And it's also the best practitioners of it also use it as a vehicle to comment on everything from politics to the always dicey relationship between men and women,
right,
and the philosophy, religion, what have you, and all along the course of telling a rollicking, good, action-based story.
You'll make. I'm sorry, I beg your pardon. Please carry on.
Well, Hardboiled is just that's one wing. I mean, there's noir, which people tend to apply to all the forms of this kind of frank American style crime fiction. Whereas noir, I think my definition of noir is a guy in an urban setting who decides to change his life by doing something reckless or criminal, and he winds up getting smacked down or killed for his trouble. That's more classically noir, but my books have been described as neo-noir. I don't want to debate it. As long as they're getting noticed and people like them, I'm fine.
Exactly. Your main character, Ed L. Birch, is an ex-vice and homicide detective, as you said. Why was he cashiered out of the force?
Well, Ed Earl is a terminal smartass. Doesn't know when to shut up.
I know someone like that.
Yeah, you're talking to him right now.
I was thinking of my husband, actually.
Well, and we share a common trait. But he's also a guy that wasn't afraid to slap around suspects and was pretty quick to use his gun. And he gets blamed by the brass for his partner getting killed. That kind of sets the stage for him to be, his last years on the force are kind of like he's dancing on a trap door. And eventually he screws up enough to where they've got a reason to boot him off the force. Basically, they don't like him worth a flip, but he kind of provides them the ready excuse to drive him off the force.
So that's the kind of man he is, huh?
Yeah, and as a result, he's kind of been slapped around by life. I kind of see him as an everyman. And when you first meet him, he's kind of pulled himself in, narrowed his world down to a little ratty office space off of Mockingbird Lane in Dallas, his apartment, and his favorite bar, with a boot on the rail and a whiskey in his hand. And it's actually a real bar, my favorite all-time bar, Louis in Dallas. And although Louis has sadly passed on from life, his bar still exists. And a charcoal sketch of me circa 1987 is still on the wall of shame in that bar.
That's cool. So the Ed L. stories take place in Texas. Why did you choose Texas?
Well, as a journalist, I used to knock around the Texas-Mexican border quite a bit, and I spent time working on a newspaper in Dallas, which has since folded, the Dallas Times-Herald. And I always liked that country, and I always thought I'd go back to Texas, but my career hasn't ended up that way. I'm living in Alabama, of all places, and I'm a University of Tennessee graduate, and we hate Alabama, but my company's paying me very good money, and it allows me to indulge my taste for vintage American convertibles. And when I was in Texas, I ran around doing stories with a photographer named Joel Saucedo. And Joel and I mean, he taught me about that border culture. And it's fascinating. I mean, it's a part of both countries that is neither Texas nor Mexico. It's kind of its own menudo, which is a well-known Mexican hangover cure. Kind of like gumbo, but not really. And, I really fell in love with that stark, harsh, high desert country. You've got the Rockies coming in from the northwest. You've got vestiges of the Ozarks coming in from the northeast, and then the Sierra del Carmen's coming up from Mexico. So it looks like they all collide in that area, and it kind of looks like somebody's ripped open the bones of the earth for you to view.
The titles of your books are The Last Second Chance, The Right Wrong Number, and The Best Lousy Choice. Are they really clever titles? What was the decision behind them?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I really love what the songwriter John Prine does with his lyrics. He will walk you right up to the cliche that you're expecting and have you leaning to hear that cliche, and then he'll take a sudden sharp right or left and turn the cliche and on its ear and give you something totally unexpected. So, the titles. I mean, not that I'm a caliber of writer that John Prine is, but I always wanted to, have something contradictory in those titles and make you think and, make you go, I wonder what he means by that.
Yeah, they do, most definitely. Jim, who would you say is your target audience?
That's a good question. I just, when I started writing these books, I assumed that would be primarily a male audience, 35 and up, and probably heavy concentration of older boomers who grew up on this stuff. But I've been surprised. I've got a lot of female fans, and pleasantly surprised.
Me being one of them.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I think, and this I did set out to do. I write very strong female characters who are just as badass or even more so than the men, and they're always smarter than the men. And Ed Earl he's nobody's fool, but he's never the smartest guy in the room. He gets by on being dogged and persistent and willing to use his fists, a gun, and take a punch to get where he wants to go.
Yeah.
He's not super cool like Steve McQueen's character in Bullet, and he's not super smart like Sam Spade or Philip Marlowe.
But he's someone that both male and female can actually associate with, I guess.
Yeah, I think that was a conscious decision. I wanted to have create somebody that was deeply flawed, but had kind of a code, which is another aspect of hard-boiled detective stories, and has a code, but that he sometimes forgets about until the chips are down and the action gets hot and heavy, and he always seems to find his footing in those circumstances.
I love your writing style, and it seems I'm in good company. You have plenty of great reviews, including Nesbitt is a natural storyteller with a taste for hard-bitten noir, which he serves up with chicken fried flair. Love that. And this author has settled high on my list of best newcomers. They're such great reviews. Do you intend writing more books featuring Ed Elbert, or have we heard the last of him?
Well, I set out thinking, I'll write 3 of these and see where it goes. But I'm already thinking about a 4th one.
Good.
And Michael Connelly's got, or anybody who's got James Lee Burke, who's got a protagonist who is probably, in modern times, it would be in his, 60s or 70s. And that's why I kind of set the books back in the, 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, because I want Earl to be around and ambulatory for a while.
Right.
I've written 3 books where he's a Dallas PI, but he always winds up on the border country. So I'm thinking of finding a way to kind of drag him out there on a more permanent basis and give him a gold shield again. I don't know quite how I'm going to do that, but it seems that I ought to drop the Dallas fiction and bring back some antagonists from earlier books that people seem to like. I'm thinking in particular of a guy named Houston homicide detective named Sider Jones, who blames Birch for the death of his partner.
Right.
In the first book, and always seems to pop up and wants Birch to take a fall, either a courthouse fall or a rough justice fall. So I think I'll bring old Sider back and see what kind of mischief he can cause Ed Earl.
I know you enjoy a good cigar and an aged whiskey, because I'm also seeing your photos on Facebook with that. So what else do you do when you're not writing? You mentioned you've got a love for older cars, vintage cars.
Yeah, my wife, when she finally moved down here, I decided I'd pick up a convertible, something we both enjoy riding in, and because I used to be an old truck guy, and I had like a '68 Chevy pickup truck for years, and finally, when I got the convertible, I got rid of it. But once I got the convertible, I thought to myself, why did I wait so long to get one of these? It was tremendous fun.
Yeah.
And Pam, my wife, I very cleverly named the car after her, and said, dangled keys in front of her and saying, honey, this is your car too. And finally she cut me short and said, look, quit. This is your car. I'm perfectly happy to sit in the passenger seat with the wind in my hair and let you do all the driving. So that's we have great fun just taking that car nowhere in particular, going backcountry roads and just driving around. We'll probably take a spin before we eat dinner today.
Lastly, Jim, where can people purchase The Best Lousy Choice and of course your other Ed Earl Birch books?
Well, if you want the paperback version, it's available on Amazon. Let's see, www.amazon.com, hack author, hack Jim Nesbitt. And it's also available on Kindle. I've also got the book out, this book out on Barnes & Noble Nook, Kobo, and iTunes or iBooks. And they're out there. They seem to bump along in small sales on those formats, but I know some folks prefer the Nook, so I've decided to break the Amazon monopoly and try to sell them on those other venues.
All right. Well, thank you, Jim, and congratulations once again on reaching the finalist stage in Book Talk Radio Club's 2019 awards, and good luck with The Best Lousy Choice. Thank you, everyone, for listening to Book Talk Radio Club. Thanks very much, Jim. Lovely to speak to you again.
Thank you. I've enjoyed the time, and get you an Ed Earl Birch book. You can't read just one.
I know. All right. Speak to you soon. Bye now.